Hi and welcome to this week's video. For this week I'm going to be talking a bit about riding hats initially. I've had to sort of replace my riding hat, so we're going to be sort of talking a bit about that and the importance of making sure it fits and a little bit about the standards. I've also done a little bit of New Year's sale shopping, because I don't know about anybody else, but I can't resist the sale time. So there's a few bits in that which I'll also sort of be talking about. So we're going to head on into the tack room where I've got my hats laid out, and I will talk a little bit about what I'm looking for in a riding hat and the one I've chosen now, which is the new Charles Owen Kylo. So we'll go on into the tack room now. Right, so here we have my selection of riding hats that I have. They are all Charles Owen. They are from the end. That one is my oldest one, and that is the AYR8 leather look, which I've had customised with white and blue patent piping. This is obviously my oldest hat. This is actually the one that needs to be retired. It has come up to the end of its sort of lifespan. Now, riding hats, as I remember rightly, I did do hat training, but that was a number of years ago. And it was a case of 3 to 5 years, obviously depending a little bit on usage and storage, on exactly how long a hat's lifespan is, but sort of 3 to 5 years, depending a little bit on usage. Obviously, if the hat sustains a fall and you hit your head, or it's dropped, would recommend replacing it. So this one hasn't had any falls, which is quite good. But it has come up to the end of its life, really. So it's going to be retired. I probably won't throw it, as it's got some sentimental value, so I will keep hold of it, and I may use it if I need to for handling on the yard. I sometimes use my older hats for that, but that would be what happens to that one. As you can see, it is looking quite grubby on the inside. This particular one doesn't have a removable liner. A lot of the newer hats now, you have liners that you can remove and wash, or if they lose their substance really and the hat starts getting a bit loose, you can then replace that, which is a really good idea. All of these hats that I have here have the PAS 015 standard and are kite marked. For me, that's the most important sort of standards that I look for in a riding hat, and that's ones I probably would recommend. There is also the VG1 is a standard, which these all meet as well. They don't have the snell. That is a different type of test that the hat undergoes, and it always used to be a case that majority of hats, if they had the PAS 115, couldn't always gain the snell because of it was two different tests. If a hat was good in one area, it didn't necessarily mean it was going to be good in the other, for the two different tests. Although the Charles Owen 4-star did meet both of those standards, But that hat is quite sort of good, particularly for eventers, for the snail, where you've got more risk of like a crush type fall, rotational falls. So I don't generally leave the ground these days, so I have fixed peaked hats for dressage. I generally would then downgrade my competition hat down to my yard hat, so I don't generally use skulls. But obviously if you're going cross country, jumping, or if you're mainly hacking, then a skull hat is an ideal option. And obviously you can change the hat covers to suit, and as the colours change each year, particularly like companies like Lemieux, they bring out new ones, and you can have your fluffy pom-pom like you do on your beanies, which I quite like on those, but generally I have fixed peaked hats because that's what I use for competing. So that's a little bit about the sort of different sort of standards. Sort of moving on for the standards, the sort of most important thing is fit. Now, I always think the hat should feel quite sort of snug when you initially have it. Obviously we're all different, we all cope with different amounts of pressure. It should feel even all the way around, and I always want my hats to feel really quite snug, particularly ones like this that don't have a removable liner, so that when the hat did settle, it didn't become too loose and start to move around. We used to use hat padding to stick up underneath to obviously get the hat to sort of fit different shaped heads. They are tend to be two different sort of shapes of shell. There's like the oval, which this particular model is, and I have an oval shaped head, which is why I've always found Charles Owen fit me better. And then you have your more sort of rounded shaped heads. So Charles Owen do a round fit in some of their designs as well, and then Champion always used to be quite a good make for a round shaped head. But obviously things have changed. I don't know all the different makes these days when it comes to riding hats. There are quite a few now. The main ones I'm aware of, obviously Charles Owen, Champion, then you've got Sam Shield, and then there's Cask, and I think Shires have brought out their caravan ones, which I did see in the shop today, and they look quite good. But I must admit, I've had Charles Owen hats, and I really like the Charles Owen hats, so that's what I've sort of stuck with. So that one is my oldest hat. Like I say, it's going to be retired. Moving on here, we have the airbrush. This is actually a discontinued model. This is the matte finish. Sadly, this sort of hat marked really easily. So you can see it's got a few sort of scuffs on it. It hasn't had a fall. It hasn't hit the ground. That is just sort of scuffing from whether it be, I think some of this is actually from tree branches where they've just scuffed the outer. Now this one sort of was the sort of start of sort of the liner system really. So this has a sort of round shaped liner which then velcros up onto the hat. Now unfortunately I don't find that stays in place very well. So this hat is one I generally have been using for arena walks, if we're staying at a competition, and general exercise, and then I have worn it for lessons as well. But I do get a little bit frustrated with the liner on this one sometimes, and also it has actually come to the end of its sort of, I think it's in its, I don't think it's that much younger than the other one. I got it discounted because it had a few scuffs on it back when I first had it. So that's that particular one. And then moving on to this one, which I actually love. Again, it is a discontinued model. This again is the airbrush, but this is the gloss, and it's got metallic down the middle, and I've also got the diamantes. So this is my current competition hat, which I love to bits. Unfortunately, it's also got a few sort of scuffs in. I managed to scratch it on the tack locker where it didn't go up completely, and I went to walk underneath it and it caught my hat, which was quite sad really, but I'm quite glad in some ways I had my hat on, because otherwise that would have been my head. So that was quite good really. It didn't take an impact, it was just literally just scratched it. But it was the catch of the locker, so if that had caught my head, it probably would have left quite a mark. So this one has now the sort of newer type liner, so it completely removes the whole thing, and you can get slightly different size liners to sort of help sort of with the fit of it. So that sort of shows a little bit of the evolution of sort of, if anything, the liner system between the hats. And that is my current competition one, and that's not going anywhere. And sort of moving on to sort of, obviously I went to have my hat fitted today. It's really important to have your hat fitted by somebody that's trained to do it. So I would always recommend that over buying one online. I wouldn't personally recommend buying a second-hand hat, because you just don't know what's sort of happened to that particular hat. So I'd always buy new and get it fitted. Always check with the individual stores and their returns policy on riding hats. Some places will not take returns on riding hats because of the safety aspect. So if that's the case, I would suggest once you've had it fitted, keeping it on for a bit while you're in the shop. Have a browse around. I'm not advocating that you should spend more money in the shop, although they probably would like it, but just have it on for a while and make sure that you're really sort of happy with it and happy with the fit, because everybody can deal with different amounts of pressure. When I sort of first had the one on the end fitted, I had quite a red mark when I first sort of took it off. And I could cope with that, and I knew that hat was going to settle, so I was quite happy with that. But some people wouldn't be able to cope with the amount of pressure, considering it left a bit of a red mark. So moving on to what I had fitted today, which is very sort of different for me. Now this is a Charles Owen, but this is a new Kylo. Well, I say new, I think it's relatively new. It's new to me anyway. So this is Kylo. This is the black gloss, and it's got a sparkly black section down the middle, which is then framed with this rose gold. And the peak then is sort of a leather look, and again sort of leather look harness as well. As you can see, most of my hats are navy, but I was really sort of taken with the black. So that is this particular hat. Now this one varies from all my others because it has a dial system, so you can adjust the hat. This is a size medium. I'm generally sort of around sort of 56, 57 centimetres, which sort of looking at sort of more riding hats sort of fitting wise, that would be about 6 7/8 or 7. It does vary. How hats are made means each hat does vary slightly, which is again why I say go in and have it fitted. Even if you want to get the exactly same hat again, there's no guarantees that it will necessarily fit the same as your original one. So keep saying get it fitted. So I went to Lemieux Saddlers in Newton Abbot today and had my hat fitted, and this is what I've chosen. Excuse my hair, it's a little bit untidy. I would normally wear a hairnet and tie it up, but for this, so I've got the hat on, and now I'm just tightening up the back until I feel sort of an even sort of pressure all the way around. That feels quite good. So that feels snug but not uncomfortable. And now I'm just gonna gently move the peak a bit, and you should see that my eyebrows are just moving slightly, so it's just sort of sitting slightly above my eyebrows. This is a bit shallower than what I'm used to, so which actually is quite nice, because I often find with some of the hats I'm trying to tuck my ears underneath, otherwise it folds my ears down. That's the problem with having too larger ears. So I'll just tighten that up a little bit more. No, that feels good. With this, because it's got this sort of mechanism with this dial that obviously does that, it's a bit like cycling hats, I think. It sits sort of below my sort of skull, which is quite nice, because it means you know it's quite secure, because it just can't get back up over that bump. So that's really nice. So that feels good. So to take it off, just undo the wheel at the back, and then you can take it off. It's important when removing this type of hat with the dial system just to loosen it off as you take it off. It does mean that when you put it back on, you know that you've got to do it back up to get a good fit, rather than just sort of popping it back on and off you go. So that's what we recommend. And what we're sort of saying about standards, I would always look out for the kite mark and the Paso 15 on a hat, personally. There is the other option that you can have this hat with the MIPS system. I haven't opted for that. I've just gone for the normal one, so to speak, because that's what I'm sort of used to. If I was jumping, particularly doing sort of more fast work, I probably would consider the MIPS, because that just helps with reducing the amount of sort of concussive force for your brain. That area, certainly if you're doing it sort of high speed things, it might be certainly worth considering, but because I generally try and keep on the ground as much as possible, that's why I opted for this one. Price wise, I was very surprised to find that they were around £120 for the non-MIPS version. I think the MIPS is 160. I went with a little bit of a sort of budget more towards the Charles Owen Luna, or the Halo. So I didn't know very much about this, but I was very interested to see them. But as they were quite a bit cheaper than the others, should we say to speak, and I was struggling to choose the colour. I saw the navy and the black. I was a bit like, oh, I like both. I'm not very good at making decisions, so I've actually ended up with one of each. So this is the navy version, if I can get it out of its bag. And this one has the blue sparkle down the middle, and then it's got like a platinum ring around that. So again, same sort of fitting with that. My sort of reasoning for having the two, as I've had to go with every outfit, it's more that this one will probably go on the horse box and replace my current one, which is this one here, which I will probably use a bit more sort of around the yard when it's it needs to be used. I suppose if I'm handling Bo and he's feeling a bit feisty, I might wear it then. I don't generally wear a hat when I'm handling, although probably should, but most of the time I just don't think to do it. But I will keep that one for that. So this one will go on the lorry, and then I've got really smart hats. Whether I'll take this one on for competitions or it'll be for training. So that is my hats. So that's it for this bit of the video. I hope it's been useful. I've tried to sort of explain a little bit. Obviously my training was quite a few years ago and things have changed, so I'd always recommend having your hat fitted, and like I keep saying, and perhaps speak to your local sort of tack shop, saddlery, and they probably will have different makes that you can obviously try on and get a good fit, and majority of them these days are customizable, whether it be a skull hat and putting a hat cover on, or your sort of fixed peak ones, which obviously you can have your different colours, or you can go for some Don Montes. I think you can spend as much as you like on a riding hat these days. So they're hats for all budgets, and I think the Kylo is a really, really good option. I think that's a good price for what it is. The Paso 1.5, for me, I don't want to spend a huge amount on a riding hat, because if I drop it, it does need to be replaced, and I like to keep my hats relatively sort of up to date, because I've only got one head and I'd like to keep it intact. So that's it for this bit. Now we're going to sort of move on, and I'm going to go through my few purchases in the online sales. So I will put my hats away. I'm going to probably sit down for the next bit, and we'll run through what I've been up to purchasing wise. It's mainly Lemieux. I think actually no, it's all Lemieux, because I really like their products, and I just needed to update my winter wardrobe a bit, because I don't know what everybody else thinks. It's either really, really wet or freezing cold at the moment. But I suppose it's winter, so what more can we expect? So right, let's get these hats away, and then I will start with my other purchases. As you may have seen in the video I did before Christmas, with that particular tack haul, I went for the spruce green for Bo. I really like this colour. I kind of sort of got it because I thought it was a little bit Christmassy, to sort of do some Christmas videos with. But I've decided actually I like the colour just in general. I've been using it quite a bit at home. So I decided that I would sort of incorporate more sort of that colour. I think it's all green. So this is the spruce green Kenza gilet. I do have the navy version, or I'm not sure it's this particular model, but very sort of similar. It's slightly older, my navy one. But this is the spruce green, which I'm very much sort of looking forward to. I prefer the gilets over the jacket, because I just find it gives me a little bit more movement, and I always feel the jackets make me look a bit like Michelin Man otherwise. So I go for the gilet. It is another sort of layer then, and if I'm riding, get too hot, it's easier to take off. So here, although this isn't the spruce, I think they call this evergreen. I'll just check what they actually call this one. This is the Adele funnel neck. They also did, I think they called it the rear, a hoodie, but I must admit I do quite like these because they're just a little bit snugly around your neck. And I do find sometimes with the hoodies, particularly if you're wearing lots of layers, it just, you end up with too many hoods, particularly as like my soft shell here has got a hood on, and too much bulk at the back. So I do quite like just having the funnel neck, and the branding is sort of almost looks like the sort of the loops of Velcro, which is a little bit different, the actual branding. And it has got pockets, because that's the other thing sometimes with jumpers and hoodies, if they don't have pockets, and they've got good sized pockets, so I can get my mobile phone in there, which can be a bit tricky, particularly when it's got its full sort of kit on. So that is probably going to get worn quite a bit. Well, it all should do. Now, you've probably seen I wear my EQdry an awful lot, but I do find it sometimes it's not the most flattering coat. It's very, very practical, but I thought I needed another sort of waterproof that was just perhaps a little bit more fitted. I'm going to say a bit posher. So this again is the spruce green Loire long riding jacket, and I love the sort of, it's almost got like a bit of a sheen to the material, so it reflects the light differently depending on how you look at it. It's a good length waterproof jacket, double zip, removable hood with your fake fur trim. I do like a bit of the fake fur trim around the hood, always looks quite smart. The other thing I really like is this sort of quite sort of soft sort of faux fur on the inside, but then you've got your more sort of quilted material further down, which is much more practical, because you don't want getting mud on that section, but that's really nice and cozy around your body. And the other thing I like about this one is it's got magnetic attachments at the back, so if the poppers are undone and you've been riding, rather than having to popper it all back up, it will magnetically close, so that sort of seals the back up without having to actually remember to do any zips up or any poppers, which I think is a really handy thing. So I'm looking forward to wearing that. I might replace my EQdry a little bit as my riding jacket. Although, like I said, I do love my EQdry. It's a great coat, but they're not the most flattering looking jackets, but they're very practical. So I will continue to use that one around the yard. So that's it for me, but Bo hasn't been left out. He did quite well. Yeah, we've got the Capella head collar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. In the spruce green. Twisted. So this is cob size. It should fit him. I really do quite like that with the leather, and then the green nylon. I think he'll look super smart in that one. And the matching rope. Now, I like these ropes. By sort of passing that back through, I can put a chain on. So that is great to have another one of those. We have a fleece rug in the spruce green, which is lovely. I have tried it on him. I'll try and get some footage of him wearing it. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it.